Hey, good morning, Jessica. It's Jim. Hey, sorry for the delay in getting this video to you. I've been a little bit backed up, but I want to get this out to you and just offer you some insights. So when I make these videos, I like to just shoot from the hip and just be really authentic with what I'm sharing. And I'm sorry that if that comes across a little bit rough around the edges, but I think it's the most helpful to you. Yeah, so let's get right into it. First of all, I'm really excited to see that you're collecting email addresses. I'll speak more on this later, but that is really huge and good news. Okay, let's X out of that. All right, so a few things that come to mind. You may have heard it mentioned before, but this area of your real estate, or this real estate of your site, is incredibly important. It's considered before the fold, meaning everything you can see on my screen now before I scroll down. So this is so essential because you only have less than a couple seconds to make a really strong first impression on your visitors. In that amount of time, they need to immediately know what it is that you do, and then they're also going to make a decision on if your site's for them, if it serves their needs. So there's a couple things to look at here. If your bounce rate is really high, that's a sign of problems. And what I mean by that is if someone comes to your site and leaves within just a few seconds, or if you notice that they don't browse more than just the home page, you know, they're not actually clicking on several different pages, that's a sign of a couple different issues. The first issue may be that you are marketing to the wrong person. Okay, like if, I guess I wouldn't be on this computer right now, but if I'm an Amish guy and I don't believe in light or electricity, and I come to your website, you're marketing to the wrong guy. Like, I have no interest in your product. That's an extreme example, but you get my point. If you're putting out your marketing dollar and finding people who are not interested in what you have to offer, they're going to bounce because you don't offer what they need. If I'm a dog person and I stumble upon a cat site, I'm going to leave. You know, it's that sort of idea. So once that's taken care of, then you have to ask yourself if you're conveying on your site before the fold what it is that you do. So your logo here implies what you do. And just aesthetically speaking, it would be nice to see this all in one line. Like, I just think that would look better. It's a small detail, but I think that would look better. But it conveys in words what it is that you do. So you need to convey in words and in picture what it is that you do. I kind of like this background image here. It's of what looks like a classy looking light. But the one thing about it is it's grainy. So I'm on a MacBook Pro and it has a Retina display, a really high pixel display. And for me, it's grainy. So I don't know if that's going to come across in the video or for everybody looking at your site. But because so many people are on better quality displays now, you want to make sure that the imagery you use is really high quality and crisp, not grainy. And I would experiment with, you know, the black and white. It looks cool, but I mean, you're selling lighting, and I think bright and classy and you know, something more along those lines. I would experiment with just some different imagery. And I really like the idea. Okay, so if you go to my blog.groovejar.com, so go there, click on this first one, how to boost your conversion rate with a killer first impression. This is a really deep dive article that I wrote about how to make a strong first impression. It'll be worth your time to read and get some ideas from. But so look at this example. This is an example of a page just before the fold, and it has one captivating image. So imagine your site having one image of a light, or maybe even better, like a lady sitting under the light reading a book, peaceful, calm. You know, think about the emotional imagery that conveys. And then imagine your logo being centered here. The hero image, as they call this, takes up the whole space. So just imagine how that would look aesthetically here. It's just a better look. It's just a more attractive design. Okay. All right, so let me kind of read through some of this. I wanted to mention, so I don't know if you're familiar with Zappos, but Zappos is a shoe company that is known worldwide for their customer service. And their tagline is something like, I think it's powered by customer service. Like, that is what they're known for. That's their go-to. That's their claim to fame. So I love that you're focusing on that. Because it's important. People want to be handled well and want to be served. So I love that you include that, and it looks like a tenet of your business, which is really great. And it's great that you have the tagline here. So really, my only feedback before the fold is what I talked about in terms of doing something along these lines, so it's more aesthetically pleasing. Otherwise, your verbiage is good. I dig it. It's great. Okay. That's kind of a cool image. Yeah, I mean, a lot of folks need an entire facelift on their site, an entire redesign. You don't. You just need a few things, especially before the fold. All right, cool. So I'm glad you're using Instagram. Instagram is so huge right now. And it looks like one thing that you might, I can't tell if your Instagram feed does this or not, but look at this here, right here. So this is an example of a store that you can actually shop their Instagram feed. add to cart right from the image, which is pretty sweet. So there's an app for that. I can't remember the name of it, but you can search for it, and it's on the Shopify App Store. So I think you're doing that here. I'm not really sure. Yeah, okay. Good. So that's great. I'm super excited to see that you're going for Instagram. And it's a longer term approach. I mean, you were talking about Google AdWords and how expensive that is, and that's true. People are successful with Google AdWords, but not until they spend $1 gazillion. Either you can spend $1 gazillion experimenting, testing, and making better choices in terms of your ad copy and all those different elements, or you hire somebody to do it. Both are really expensive. I don't like to dissuade people from using AdWords, but there are so many different ways to market that it's difficult to use AdWords as your primary source. Another thing to consider is you have a challenging brand to market. And the reason I say that is because everybody needs lighting, but you have the challenge of making it sexy, making it interesting, and that's difficult. You're doing great with your Instagram here, but that's one thing you have to consider is, I know it's weird to think about, but what are the emotions behind lighting? Like I mentioned earlier, you have a lady sitting reading a book. It's relaxing. It's, you've got to figure out what those emotions are, the warmth of light and all that, capture that and make that interesting through your brand. And that's tough with certain product lines, and yours is one of those that it's just not as interesting as certain niches in terms of, people don't typically sit down and browse lights, right, on their phones. So something that's going to be more challenging for you. Okay, let's look at a specific product. Let's check this one out. Shop it. Okay. Let me let this load up here. All right. Okay. So a couple things here. On a product, there's several key elements that are really important on your product listing page. One of those is super high quality imagery. So I really like the images or the style where you can kind of hover over it and it zooms in. You've probably seen this, but the better quality image and the more images, the more you're going to sell. So I would encourage you to have more images, better quality images. And I don't know if that's possible if you're drop shipping or not, but if it is possible and you can do it, then great. Another really important element is not just listing the features. So the features are important. People need to know that. But what's even more important is the benefits. What's the benefit to your potential client? And when you write your copy, write to one person. Imagine your client, basically the person that represents your brand, who you're going after, your target market, your target individual, and write to that person. Write to that person and explain the emotional benefits of what it is that you offer. You've got to captivate that. Well, what does it feel like when you sit down under a warm light and you're reading a book? What does that feel like? Peace, serenity, warmth, comfort, pleasure, relaxation, all of those things you need to accentuate. If you look here, so this is an example that I like to share. This is just a simple hand soap, and you would think that that's something that's fairly boring, but look at this copy right here. You can pause the video to read it, but one whiff of this soothing sea scent and you may be inspired to stand on the bow of a sailing ship with your arms outstretched like a bird flying towards the shore. I mean, it's just interesting. So it's captivating through, emotions, freedom, story. It's powerful copy that sells, and you've got to do the same thing on all of your products, and that's going to really help you sell them. So you've got to just sit down and figure out those emotional words. Think of benefits for your clients, not just specifications. Okay, and then lastly, reviews. I'm sure that you know this, but think about when you shop on Amazon. For me, if there's no reviews, I don't buy it, and if there's poor reviews, I don't buy it. And I get that this takes time, but focusing on getting reviews is critical. Ask your clients to leave a review. Incentivize them to leave a review. That's got to be a huge focus for you to get that done. It's critical. It's critical to do, and that'll make a big difference for you. Okay, lastly, let's look at your About page if you have one. One second, let me see if I can find it. Your About page, Jessica, maybe you don't have one. You wouldn't think, especially in the lighting niche, that's going to be important, but people do business with people, not with brands and not with companies. And if you're the curator of these fine lights, then put yourself there. It builds trust and credibility. Having an About page with major tenets of your brand, like you're focused on customer service, a little bit about you, a picture of you, not in sunglasses, right? Just smiling picture of you, that builds trust and conveys that you're going to stand behind your brand and that you're serious about this and that you have some expertise in this area. People like that. People really do like that. I think there's this movement away from big box stores like Walmart and Target. So there's no reason to represent that. And it also helps justify your prices, that these are curated items, you stand behind them, and it builds trust and all of those things. Okay. So lastly, let's talk about email addresses. I'm so excited that you're collecting emails. My company, GrooveJar, has an app that does this. It's called Groove Urgent, and it has a countdown timer and converts really well to collect emails. But there's other great companies. Privy is one. SumoMe is one. The point is that you're focusing on this and that you're doing it. If you think about it, when someone comes to your site, that the most valuable commodity is their attention, right? That's the most valuable thing that you have from them is their attention. When they leave, if you don't have an email address, you have no way to proactively reach out to them and get their attention again. If you have their email, you can start to build a relationship with them and work them, down the buying funnel to get them to convert. So that's incredibly critical to do that, to focus on that. So I'm glad that you're doing it. Okay, Jessica, let me know if you have any questions, if you want to take a deeper dive on any specific subjects. I'm happy to help. Take care.